July 1965. Detroit was burning. Race riots had turned the city into a war zone. Buildings on fire, gunshots, people dying in the streets. Police couldn't stop it. The National Guard couldn't stop it. Then Sammy Davis Jr., trapped in his hotel watching the city destroy itself, did something that should have gotten him killed. He walked outside into the riot, climbed on top of a burning car and started tap dancing. No music. No plan. Just rhythm and courage. 15 minutes later, the violence stopped. Not because of tear gas or arrests. Because a 5-6 inches entertainer reminded a city what they were destroying themselves. It started on July 23, 1965, in the early morning hours. Detroit police raided an after-hours drinking club on 12th Street, a predominantly black neighborhood. What should have been a routine arrest turned into a flashpoint for years of accumulated anger about police brutality, housing discrimination, and economic inequality. By dawn, the neighborhood was in flames. By noon, the riots had spread across the city. Cars were overturned and set on fire. Windows were smashed. Stores were looted. Gunfire echoed through the streets. What started as protest against injustice had devolved into chaos and destruction. The Detroit Police Department was overwhelmed within hours. They called for backup from surrounding counties. When that wasn't enough, Michigan Governor George Romney requested federal assistance. President Lyndon Johnson deployed the National Guard. By the second day, there were thousands of troops in Detroit trying to restore order to a city that had descended into violence. But military presence didn't stop the riots. If anything, it escalated tensions. More buildings burned. More people died. The city that had been the heart of American manufacturing, home to Motown Records and the auto industry, was destroying itself from the inside. Sammy Davis Jr. was in Detroit that week for a completely different reason. He was at Motown Studios working on a recording session with Berry Gordy. Motown was at its peak. Diana Ross and the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, The Temptations. Sammy had flown in to collaborate on what was supposed to be a groundbreaking album that would blend his traditional entertainment style with Motown's soul sound. When the riots started, Sammy was staying at the Gotham Hotel in downtown Detroit. The hotel management immediately went into lockdown mode. Guests were told to stay in their rooms, keep away from windows, and wait for the situation to resolve itself. From his 10th floor window, Sammy watched Detroit burn. He could see smoke rising from buildings blocks away. He could hear the distant sounds of breaking glass, shouting, occasional gunfire. And as night fell on July 23rd, the second day of rioting, he could see fires lighting up the darkness across the city. What broke Sammy's heart wasn't just the violence or the destruction. It was that this was happening in a black neighborhood. These were black-owned businesses being burned, black families being displaced, black people destroying their own community in rage and frustration. Sammy understood the anger. God knows he understood it. He'd spent his entire life fighting racism, facing discrimination, being told he wasn't good enough because of the color of his skin. He'd performed in venues where he wasn't allowed to stay as a guest. He'd married a white woman and received death threats for it. He knew what it was like to be angry at a system that treated you as less than human. But this destruction of their own neighborhood, it wasn't the answer. And watching it from his hotel room, feeling helpless and trapped, was tearing him apart. Around 9 p.m. on July 24th, the third night of rioting, Sammy made a decision that his security team and the hotel manager tried desperately to stop. "Mr. Davis, you can't," the hotel security chief said. "It's a war zone out there. You'll be killed." "I can't just sit here and watch my people destroy themselves," Sammy said. "The National Guard is out there with guns. Rioters are setting fires. This isn't your fight." "It's exactly my fight," Sammy said quietly. "I'm not going out there to stop the riot with force. I'm going out there to remind them who they are." Against all advice, against every reasonable instinct for self-preservation, Sammy Davis Jr. walked out of the Gotham Hotel at 9:30 p.m. on July 24th, 1965. The scene outside was apocalyptic. Fires burned in barrels and buildings. Broken glass littered the streets. Groups of people ran past carrying stolen goods. In the distance, the sound of sirens mixed with shouts and the occasional crack of gunfire. Sammy walked east on Adams Avenue toward the heart of the riot zone. He was wearing a white shirt and dark pants. No disguise, no protection, nothing that would make him blend in or seem less of a target. People recognized him almost immediately. "That's Sammy Davis Jr.," someone shouted. Some people stopped and stared, confused about what a famous entertainer was doing walking through a riot. Others kept moving too, caught up in the chaos to care. About 3 blocks from his hotel, Sammy saw what he'd been looking for without knowing it. A Chevrolet sedan was on fire in the middle of the street, flames shooting from its hood and interior. Around it, maybe 50 or 60 people were gathered, some throwing bottles at buildings, others just standing and watching the destruction. Sammy walked directly toward the burning car. His heart was pounding. He had no plan, no script, no idea what he was actually going to do. He just knew he had to do something. He reached the car, and before anyone could stop him, or before his own fear could paralyze him, he climbed onto the hood. The metal was hot from the fire, burning through his shoes, but he stood up straight on top of that burning car and looked out at the crowd. For a moment, nobody moved. They just stared at this small, famous man standing on top of a burning car in the middle of a riot. Then Sammy started to tap dance. No music, no accompaniment, just the sound of his tap shoes on the hot metal hood of a burning Chevrolet. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 tap. The rhythm cut through the chaos like nothing else could. People stopped throwing things. The shouting quieted. More people gathered, drawn by the surreal sight of Sammy Davis Jr. performing on a burning car in the middle of Detroit's worst riot. For maybe 90 seconds, Sammy just danced, creating rhythm, creating a moment of beauty and order in the middle of chaos. His feet moved with the precision and skill of someone who'd been tap dancing since he was 3 years old. The sound echoed off the buildings, a counterpoint to the violence and destruction. Then he stopped, stood still on that burning car, smoke rising around him, and spoke. His voice was strong, carrying across the crowd that had grown to over 100 people. "My brothers and sisters," he said, "look around you. What do you see?" Silence. People looked at the burning buildings, the broken windows, the destruction. "You see our neighborhood burning," Sammy continued. "Our businesses, our homes, our city. Not the white man's city, not the police department's city. Our city, your city. The place where your children go to school, where your families shop, where you work and live and love." Someone in the crowd shouted, "They pushed us too far." "The police." "I know," Sammy interrupted. "I know what the police have done. I know about the brutality, the discrimination, the injustice. I've lived it too. Every day of my life I've had to fight to be seen as equal, to be treated as human. I get it. I'm angry too." His voice got quieter, more intense. "But this, burning your own neighborhood, destroying businesses owned by your own people, turning this community into ash, this isn't fighting back. This is destroying ourselves. And that's exactly what they want us to do." The crowd was completely silent now, listening. "You want to fight?" Sammy asked. "Fight with your minds. Fight with your votes. Fight with your unity. Build your community so strong that nobody can tear it down. But don't tear it down yourselves. Don't give them the satisfaction of watching us destroy what we've built." He paused, looking out at faces illuminated by firelight. Young faces, old faces, angry faces, tired faces. "I'm Sammy Davis Jr.," he said. "I've performed for presidents and kings. I've stood on stages all over the world. But right now, standing on this burning car in Detroit, this is the most important performance of my life. Because I'm not performing for applause. I'm performing to save my people from destroying themselves." He pointed to a burning building. "That's Mr. Johnson's grocery store. He's worked there for 30 years. Feeds this neighborhood. Now it's gone. You think burning it hurts the police? It hurts Mr. Johnson. It hurts his family. It hurts everyone who shopped there." He pointed to another building. "That's the community center, where kids go after school, where they're safe, where they learn, where they play. Now it's ash. Who does that hurt? Not the government. Your own children." Tears were running down Sammy's face now, his voice breaking with emotion. "I love you. All of you. You're my family. We're bound together by the struggle we've all lived through. But family doesn't destroy family. Family builds each other up, protects each other, lifts each other higher. Someone in the crowd started crying. Then another. The anger that had fueled the destruction was transforming into something else. Grief, recognition, shame. Go home, Sammy said gently. Go home to your families. Tomorrow we rebuild. Tomorrow we organize. Tomorrow we fight the right way. But tonight, let this end. Let Detroit stop burning. For a long moment, nobody moved. The crowd stood frozen, processing what they'd just heard and witnessed. Then an older woman in the crowd said, "He's right. God help us. He's right. We're destroying ourselves." She started walking away from the riot, heading home. Another person followed. Within 5 minutes, the crowd had dispersed. People were walking away, putting down the rocks and bottles they'd been holding, heading back to their homes and families. Sammy climbed down from the burning car, his shoes scorched, his clothes smelling of smoke. His hands were shaking from adrenaline and fear, and the weight of what had just happened. A Detroit police officer approached him cautiously. "Mr. Davis, I'm Sergeant Williams. I've been watching from down the block. I can't believe what I just saw. You just stopped a riot with tap dancing and talking." "I didn't stop a riot," Sammy said quietly. "I just reminded people who they were. The rest was up to them." "How did you know it would work? How did you know they wouldn't hurt you?" "I didn't," Sammy admitted. "But I knew I had to try, because if I didn't, I'd spend the rest of my life watching this neighborhood burn and knowing I could have done something." Sergeant Williams escorted Sammy back to his hotel. Within an hour, the entire block that Sammy had spoken on was quiet. No more fires, no more violence, just people going home. The riots continued in other parts of Detroit for 2 more days. But that particular neighborhood, the blocks around where Sammy had climbed on that burning car, stayed quiet. Word spread about what had happened, about Sammy Davis Jr. performing on a burning Chevrolet and calling his people to stop destroying themselves. The official reports of the 1965 Detroit riots mention police action, National Guard deployment, and eventual federal intervention. They don't mention Sammy Davis Jr. climbing on a burning car and tap dancing to stop violence. That story wasn't in any newspaper. It wasn't in the official records. But the people who were there remembered. They told their children and grandchildren about the night Sammy Davis Jr. saved their neighborhood with nothing but tap shoes and truth. Detroit Police Chief Ray Girardin heard about it the next day through his officers. He called the Gotham Hotel and asked to speak with Sammy. "Mr. Davis," Girardin said, "I heard what you did last night on Adams Avenue." "I just talked to people," Sammy said. "You did more than talk. My officers tell me you climbed on a burning car and performed, that you stopped violence that we couldn't stop with tear gas and guns." "How?" "I reminded them that they were destroying themselves," Sammy said. "Sometimes people need to be reminded of who they are, especially when they've forgotten in their anger." "I've been a cop for 30 years, Girardin said. "I've never seen anything like it. I don't know whether you're the bravest man I've ever encountered or the craziest." "Probably both," Sammy admitted. The chief paused. "Thank you for what you did, for caring enough to risk your life." "It's my community too," Sammy said simply. The 1965 Detroit riots officially ended on July 27th. 43 people had died. Over 1,000 were injured. Thousands of buildings were destroyed. The damage cost the city hundreds of millions of dollars and left scars that would take decades to heal. But in one neighborhood, on one block, a 5-6 inches entertainer had stopped violence, not with force, but with art and truth. He'd climbed on a burning car and reminded people of their humanity, of their community, of what they were destroying. Years later, in 1987, Sammy was interviewed about his career. The interviewer asked about his proudest moment. Most people expected him to talk about performing for presidents, or his sold-out shows, or his albums and movies. Instead, Sammy said, "Detroit, July 24th, 1965. Standing on a burning car, performing for people who weren't there to be entertained, but who needed to be reminded of who they were. No orchestra, no lights, no applause, just rhythm and truth. That's when I understood what entertainment really means. It's not about making people forget their problems. Sometimes it's about helping them remember who they are." "Were you scared?" the interviewer asked. "Terrified," Sammy said. I thought I might die out there, but I also thought, if I die trying to save my community from destroying itself, that's a death with meaning. That's a death I can accept. What made you climb on that car? Sammy thought for a long moment. Love. I loved my people too much to watch them destroy themselves. And sometimes love requires you to do things that terrify you. To stand up when it's safer to sit down. To speak when it's easier to stay silent. To dance on a burning car, when every instinct tells you to run away. If this story of courage, community, and the power of art to heal what violence destroys moved you, make sure to subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is remind people of their humanity when they've forgotten it. Have you ever had to stand up to stop something destructive, even when it scared you? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible true stories about the legends who showed us that art, courage, and truth can be more powerful than any weapon.